Hi everyone. Today I'm going to be showing you a real-time demo of ingesting change data capture logs from a Google Cloud Platform data source into Databricks. And the architecture that you're seeing on my screen right now, essentially our web application is going to be simulated via a MySQL workbench. So essentially I'm just going to be running some update statements on a database. And that is basically going to be fed into a GCP MySQL instance. We're going to be using StreamSets to absorb the MySQL changelogs in real time, which is going to persist into an Event Hub as our real-time staging area. And then we'll basically be ingesting those logs using Spark structured streaming via Databricks into a Delta table. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So on the right here, you basically we have our MySQL 5.7 database instance being hosted on GCP Cloud SQL, and the idea here is basically this solution is multi-cloud, and so you could have this running on Azure, you could have this running on a VM. It doesn't really matter. And on the left-hand side, basically, I'm connected into my database here. Using MySQL Workbench, and so you can think of this basically as being your web app where you're doing your updates and inserts and whatnot. And basically the data that we have today, we're going to be focusing on one table, but the solution applies to basically every table. It's a straightforward AdventureWorks database. Basically, we've got some customer data here, and the idea is Mr. Gustavo here, number one, is going to be my victim with regards to the updates that get made, and we'll get back here very shortly. So what I have on the right here is basically StreamSets. It's running in the cloud version. This is a free service that I'm running right now. And essentially what this is doing is this is reading in the changelogs coming from GCP, and then it's basically flattening it into a JSON and then writing it into Azure Event Hub. And then basically this is being read from the Event Hub as a real-time streaming pipeline over here. And this is going to be the notebook that I'm going to be showing you with regards to real-time demoing. And so if I scroll down here, I just ran this notebooks a couple seconds ago. What you'll notice is if I go back to MySQL and I do a count, there is 19,972 records here, which I've already done a full load into Databricks here. And so essentially, this is what my table looks like. I've got 19,972, and the notebook is basically split up by SCD Type 1 and SCD Type 2. So basically, you've got update with no history in Type 1, and that's the table here. And basically, you've got SCD Type 2 where you have versioning enabled, and that is this table here. So the idea is as I start making updates to my source, we should be seeing the real-time changes come into both these tables as part of the streaming pipeline. And then essentially we'll have no versioning in the SCD Type 1 above and versioning in SCD Type 2. And the way I'm implementing versioning is basically via a start and end date and a current flag. So I'll go ahead and show you that. So let's go ahead and get started. If you'll notice right now that in my contact staging table, which is basically a real-time streaming table that's getting updated via my pipeline that I just showed you, there are no records because essentially I have no changes that haven't been merged yet. And so let's go ahead and actually make a change right now. And so what I'm going to do is basically for Gustavo here, I'm basically going to change his email address from Gustavo0 to Gustavo1. Let me go ahead and commit that transaction. So you can imagine this basically as a database transaction that's taking place from a web app or something. And if you notice on the source is the email did get updated from 0 to 1. And essentially, let's keep our eye on this graph here. You'll notice this goes from 2 to 3. And essentially what's going to happen, what's happening right now, is essentially StreamSets is reading the real-time change data capture from my Cloud SQL, and as you just noticed, this went to 3. Basically, it wrote that change data into Event Hub. And from Event Hub, here I'm going into Databricks, which is basically reading from Event Hub in a streaming table. And so if I do a count star, you'll notice this goes to 1, basically because I have that new change data log that came in, and that is my new change data. So now what I can do is let me go ahead and run this pipeline, and you'll see that in the SCD Type 1 and Type 2 table, we have the new updates that get made. And so if I scroll down, here's the merge statement happening for the Type 1. And once this is running, you should see this is still at the same number, because in type 1, as we already know, there's no versioning, like that's by design. And so if I go ahead and look in Gustavo right now, it shows Gustavo 1, which is basically in sync with what is in our source database. And if I scroll down to 2, here I'm doing versioning based on the message timestamp as it comes in. Once the merge operation is done running, we should see this number go to 3, which essentially means that I now have 2 data points corresponding to the entire history of Gustavo here. And so once this is done running, let me go ahead and check out the table where I have a filter on Gustavo. And so basically on contact ID equals 1, as you can see, this is the data point from before. And the pipeline basically went ahead, changed the end date into the time when the new data point came in, and then set the current flag to no. And then for the new data point, which is the latest one as far as Gustavo is concerned, is updated with the new timestamp, and then we've just set an infinite date as far as the end date goes, and then this is the current flag. So essentially now in my pipeline, I have full visibility into all of the changes that's been made to Gustavo's account. And so if I go ahead and let's go ahead and do the same demo now for phone number, for example. If we did it for email again, it would basically just append a new one. But let me go ahead and kind of show you this for the email. And so if I do the persist and I read, you'll notice that his phone number changed from the 3 something that it used to be before to this new number now. And if you keep your eye out on this graph right here, basically again StreamSets is reading from GCP's MySQL bin logs, and it will be persisting it into Azure Event Hub. And when it's done doing that, I'm going to go ahead and go into my staging table again, and you'll notice that I have that new entry. One thing I do want to note is that as part of this pipeline, basically after I'm done doing my merges, I basically go ahead and truncate the staging table. The reason being is once you've actually gone ahead and ingested the logs, you want to make sure that your staging table is up to date with regards to your data point. And I think with regards to StreamSets, I think if you're probably, this is a free tier, so that's probably why there's like a few seconds of a lag. But I'm sure that if you implement something that's more production ready, this should be nearly instantaneous. So if I go ahead and read my staging table now, it should still say 1 because of that new entry that just came in. And if I go ahead and run a select here, you'll notice that this has the new phone number. So let me go ahead and run all here, and once the data gets loaded in, we'll see that the updates get made. Another point that is of interest is the fact that right now, like obviously I'm running these pipelines in a staging manner just to show you, but the idea is you could have this running as a streaming job as well, and then basically do a streaming insert into our table. So essentially, like the end select star that you run from your pipeline should be seamless, and so from source to destination, it should be instantaneous. So if I look at my SCD Type 1 table again, you'll notice that the email is Gustavo 1, which is the latest one, and the phone number did get updated. And obviously, as part of this, we don't have any versioning. By design, is SCD Type 1. And if I scroll down to my new table, you'll notice that there's 2 data points, which corresponds to the 2 versions that came out of Gustavo. And if I scroll down now, you'll notice that this is the latest data point with the new phone number. And this is also set to the current flag and the end date. And if I look at my previous 2 entries right now, the pipeline would have gone ahead and basically changed the end dates and then set the current flag to null, which essentially just basically this ends our demonstration. And if I go ahead and actually show you those data points, so basically here I have the Databricks pipeline running in real time, and so those 2 spikes, the 2 inserts that we did, is essentially corresponding to the spikes here. And the idea is, in real life, when you are running something like this, and you can see those 2 wee little spikes over there, obviously you would have this pipeline running in real time, and this can scale up to as many data sources as well as many data points that get changed, as long as your database and your CDC publisher is basically making those changes. So, all right, thanks for your time. I really hope you enjoyed this demonstration, and see you next time.